In the world of luxury automobiles, few vehicles command the respect and admiration earned by the Range Rover. Its story begins in an era when utility took precedence, and the notion of a refined, luxurious off-roader seemed almost laughable. Yet innovation often thrives where expectations are defied. It all started with Maurice Wilks, a man whose vision for a no-nonsense, go-anywhere vehicle laid the groundwork for what would become Land Rover. As time went on, others built upon that vision, proving that rugged off-road capability and sophisticated refinement could not only coexist but thrive together. The result was the birth of a billion-dollar brand that forever changed the meaning of the term SUV. Maurice Wilks wasn't just an engineer, he was a visionary. As the chief engineer at the Rover Company, he had a talent for turning ambitious ideas into practical realities. In 1947, he faced a challenge that would define his legacy: to create a vehicle capable of conquering any terrain. While spending time on his farm in Anglesey, Wales, inspiration struck. He envisioned a rugged, all-purpose vehicle similar to the Willys Jeep, which had proven invaluable during World War II. But Wilks didn't want to simply recreate the Jeep. He wanted to improve it. Using a surplus Jeep chassis as a prototype, he and his team began experimenting. They modified the frame, refined the suspension, and adapted the design to serve both agricultural and civilian needs. Wilks imagined a vehicle that could be as reliable as a tractor in the fields, yet comfortable enough to drive on public roads. This vision laid the foundation for what would become the Land Rover Series I. But innovation rarely comes without resistance. When Wilks pitched the idea to Rover executives, he was met with skepticism. At the time, Rover was known for producing elegant sedans, not utilitarian workhorses. Many within the company questioned whether there was a market for such a vehicle. Would customers really buy an off-road machine from a brand associated with refinement? Wilks was undeterred. He built and demonstrated prototypes, showcasing the vehicle's durability, adaptability, and wide range of uses. Slowly, opinions began to shift. The post-war economy was evolving, and the need for a tough, versatile vehicle was becoming increasingly clear. Finally, in 1948, the Rover Company gave the green light. A legend was born. When the Land Rover Series I made its grand debut at the Amsterdam Motor Show in 1948, it didn't just attract attention, it made history. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Attendees recognized its potential instantly. Farmers, military forces, industrial workers, and adventurers alike saw in the Land Rover something truly unique. A machine that combined utility, durability, and simplicity in a way that had never been done before. What had begun as a rough experimental farm vehicle, built in a time of post-war uncertainty, had now transformed into a symbol of rugged independence. It was more than a product launch. It was the arrival of a new era in automotive design. The Series I became a global sensation almost overnight, a testament to Maurice Wilks's vision, tenacity, and engineering brilliance. The enduring legacy of that moment reminds us that the boldest, most revolutionary ideas often come from the most unexpected circumstances. Despite its instant acclaim, the Land Rover's path to glory was anything but smooth. When the first models rolled off the production line in 1948, the vehicle was never intended to be a permanent fixture in the Rover Company's portfolio. In fact, it was created as a temporary stopgap, a rugged utility vehicle meant to keep the company afloat in the unpredictable, resource-starved climate of post-war Britain. But fate and Wilks's determination had other plans. From the outset, production was fraught with challenges. Britain was still recovering from the devastation of World War II, and industries across the nation were grappling with severe shortages, especially of steel, which was being heavily rationed. Conventional car manufacturing was nearly impossible under such constraints, yet Morris Wilks refused to let this stop him. Drawing on his wartime experience and resourcefulness, he looked to a surprising alternative: aluminum. Thanks to surplus aircraft production during the war, aluminum was both available and underutilized. Lightweight, corrosion resistant, and durable, it proved to be a game-changing material for the fledgling Land Rover. This decision not only circumvented the scarcity of steel, it became a defining feature of the Land Rover. The use of aluminum gave the vehicle a distinct look and unmatched longevity, traits that would come to symbolize the brand's rugged endurance for decades to come. Initially, Rover's executives remained skeptical. They limited production, uncertain whether the vehicle had a future beyond a niche agricultural market. But Morris Wilks had no such doubts. He believed wholeheartedly in what they had created, and it didn't take long for the world to catch up. After its appearance at the Amsterdam Motor Show, demand surged. Orders poured in from across the globe. Farmers wanted it, utility companies needed it, military officials praised its adaptability. The Land Rover's ability to go anywhere and do anything made it indispensable. The Rover Company quickly realized it had vastly underestimated the vehicle's appeal. But with demand skyrocketing, Wilks found himself in a high-stakes race not only to prove the Land Rover's staying power, but also to scale production under tight financial and material constraints. It wasn't easy. Securing enough raw materials, reorganizing manufacturing, and building out a supply chain required intense focus and strategic foresight. Yet Wilks met the challenge head-on. Through relentless determination and smart decision-making, he successfully ramped up production, secured funding, and optimized output. What began as a short-term solution had now become Rover's flagship product and a global success story. Under Morris Wilks's leadership, the Land Rover didn't just survive, it thrived. It became the company's most successful and recognizable product, embraced on every continent. From farms and jungles to deserts and military outposts, the Land Rover earned a reputation as a reliable, go-anywhere companion. By the early 1960s, Land Rover had evolved from a niche utility vehicle into a cultural and commercial icon. Its minimalist design, mechanical simplicity, and unmatched durability became legendary. It wasn't just transportation, it was a lifeline in the most extreme environments. In 1963, Morris Wilks passed away suddenly from a heart attack. He left behind a thriving brand and a profound legacy. Under his guidance, a temporary fix had blossomed into one of the most iconic automotive names in the world. The Land Rover was now trusted by farmers in Devon, safari guides in Kenya, soldiers in the Middle East, and explorers in the Arctic. But even with Wilks gone, the story of Land Rover was far from over. In the years that followed, the company would continue to build on his vision. New models, including the luxurious Range Rover launched in 1970, pushed the boundaries of what an off-road vehicle could be. Land Rover expanded its global footprint, diversified its offerings, and evolved from a utility vehicle manufacturer into a premium brand with an unparalleled reputation for adventure and reliability. Morris Wilks may not have lived to see the full impact of his creation, but the world he helped shape continues to be driven literally and figuratively by his ingenuity. With the success of the original Series I, Land Rover didn't rest on its laurels. What followed were the Series Roman II and Series Roman III models vehicles that would come to define rugged dependability across the globe. These were not just upgrades, they were evolutions that embodied everything Land Rover stood for: reliability, resilience, and versatility. As the world grew more connected, so did Land Rover's footprint. From the sun-scorched savannas of Africa to the endless red deserts of the Australian outback, and even into the frozen reaches of the Arctic, Land Rovers became an essential companion in world's most unforgiving environments. No road, no problem. These vehicles became indispensable tools for those who relied on durability over aesthetics. Farmers, soldiers, explorers, humanitarian workers, and more. Governments trusted them. NGO relied on them. Expedition leaders wouldn't set out without them. The Land Rover was no longer just a vehicle. It was a symbol of adventure and unbreakable trust. Its square, doff design, no-frills interior, and mechanical simplicity were part of its charm and strength. Yet while it reigned supreme off-road, the broader automotive landscape was quietly shifting. By the late 1960s, the global auto industry was undergoing a subtle but powerful transformation. Consumers, especially those with means, were beginning to want more than just raw capability. They wanted comfort. They wanted refinement, style, and a vehicle that could not only tackle rough terrain, but also turn heads on city streets. This emerging demographic didn't want to choose between grit and grace. They asked, why can't a vehicle do both? While the original Land Rover had been born out of necessity, a utilitarian workhorse designed for survival, a new kind of market was taking shape. One driven not by need, but by desire. The idea of a luxurious off-road vehicle, once dismissed as impractical, now seemed like a bold new frontier. Though Maurice Wilks had passed away in 1963, the seeds he had planted were still growing, and soon they would bloom into something completely new. It was Spen King, Maurice Wilks's nephew, and a gifted engineer in his own right, who would lead the next great leap forward. He saw an opportunity to create something unprecedented. A vehicle that could bridge the seemingly impossible gap between rugged utility and sophisticated luxury. Skeptics scoffed at the idea. A refined 4x4. It had never been done. But King believed the future belonged to versatility. With a small, dedicated team, he set out to design a new kind of vehicle, one that could traverse a muddy hillside in the morning and pull up to a country club that afternoon. To keep the project under wraps, the team gave it the code name Velar, derived from the Italian word velare, meaning to veil or to cover. But what they were building couldn't stay hidden for long. The Velar prototype introduced a series of groundbreaking innovations: coil spring suspension, replacing the old leaf springs, dramatically improved ride comfort without sacrificing off-road ability, permanent four-wheel drive offered consistent traction and stability across all terrains, a powerful 3.5-liter V8 engine, sourced from Buick, delivered a level of performance unheard of in off-road vehicles at the time. This wasn't just a modified Land Rover. It was a reimagination of what an SUV could be. It retained the brand's legendary off-road DNA while introducing comfort, performance, and style in equal measure. When the Range Rover officially launched in 1970, it didn't just turn heads, it rewrote the rulebook. It was the world's first luxury sport utility vehicle, and nothing like it had ever existed before. It could scale rocky trails and ford rivers with ease, then cruise down the motorway in elegance. The Range Rover's arrival marked the birth of a new class of vehicle, the luxury SUV. For the first time, consumers didn't have to choose between capability and comfort. They could have both. Its versatility made it a favorite among royalty, celebrities, adventurers, and families alike. Whether used as a countryside cruiser or a diplomatic convoy vehicle, the Range Rover proved its worth everywhere it went. Spen King had taken the foundation his uncle laid and elevated it into a new realm, one that would shape the automotive landscape for generations. But even then, the road ahead wasn't without obstacles. When Spen King and his team first introduced the Range Rover, many within the industry were highly skeptical. The notion of blending luxury with off-road utility struck some as absurd. Critics questioned whether there was a market for such a hybrid. Would customers really spend more on a vehicle designed for the wild, yet trimmed in leather and wood? But the doubters were soon silenced. As the Range Rover proved itself in both urban environments and uncharted territory, its reputation only grew. It wasn't a compromise, it was a new standard. Luxury didn't need to live behind a velvet rope. It could roam, explore, and conquer. When the idea of the Range Rover was first proposed, many dismissed it as an unnecessary gamble. At the time, SUVs were firmly categorized as utility vehicles built for farmers, military forces, and industrial use, not for the affluent or executive class. The notion of merging off-road capability with comfort and refinement seemed contradictory, even absurd. Critics argued that the market for such a vehicle was virtually non-existent, and that developing one would be a costly misstep. But the skepticism wasn't just external. Inside the Rover Group, financial strain was mounting. The company was grappling with a perfect storm. Outdated production facilities, sluggish sales of its sedan models, and the lingering economic instability of post-war Britain. Resources were thin, and risk tolerance was lower than ever. To many within the company, pouring money into an untested luxury off-roader seemed not only risky but reckless. At multiple points, the project came dangerously close to being shelved entirely. Yet through the doubt and the adversity, Spen King and his team remained resolute. They were convinced that they had created something unique, something with the potential to transform not just the company, but the industry. When the Range Rover finally launched in 1970, it wasn't the plush, technology-laden luxury SUV we know today. In fact, it was far more utilitarian than upscale. The original model came with vinyl seats, a minimalist dashboard, and hose-down rubber flooring. It was built for practicality, not opulence, but something unexpected happened. Wealthier buyers began to take notice. They didn't see just a rugged off-roader. They saw a new kind of status symbol. The Range Rover's bold design and go-any, wearability offered a certain rugged elegance, a quiet confidence that appealed to those seeking something different from traditional luxury sedans. This unexpected attention from affluent customers began to reshape Rover's thinking. Over time, the Range Rover was refined. Its interiors were upgraded with higher quality materials, its styling was enhanced, and its features became more aligned with the premium expectations of its evolving clientele. Despite the vehicle's promise, early sales were slow. Part of the issue stemmed from unclear marketing. The Range Rover straddled two worlds, tough off-roader and refined tourer, but it wasn't effectively positioned as either. Some buyers were unsure of what it was supposed to be. Was it a farm truck, a family car, a luxury ride? However, word of mouth and glowing reviews soon began to shift perceptions. Automotive journalists praised the Range Rover's unmatched versatility, celebrating its ability to handle rough terrain with grace while offering a surprisingly comfortable driving experience. As confidence grew, so did sales. The Range Rover had proved its critics wrong. It wasn't an unnecessary luxury. It was the beginning of an entirely new automotive segment, one where rugged performance and elegant design could coexist in harmony. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the Range Rover underwent a dramatic transformation. What had started as a rugged and practical utility vehicle gradually evolved into a true luxury automobile. The interior was reimagined with plush leather upholstery, polished wood trim, and advanced features like air suspension systems, all designed to deliver a superior driving experience, both on and Off the road, this evolution solidified the Range Rover's place as the definitive luxury SUV. It wasn't just a capable vehicle, it was a status symbol. From European aristocrats to Hollywood elite, high-profile figures began to gravitate toward the Range Rover for its unique blend of prestige, performance, and power. It became just as common to see one parked outside a Mayfair club as it was to find it forging rivers on a remote safari. In 1987, a major milestone was reached. The Range Rover officially entered the U.S. market. At the time, the concept of a luxury SUV was virtually unknown in America. Four-wheeled drive vehicles were associated with utility and ruggedness, not exclusivity or comfort. But the Range Rover challenged that perception. It showed American buyers that they could have both. With its combination of refinement, capability, and undeniable charisma, it resonated with a new generation of consumers who wanted their vehicle to be as comfortable on city streets as it was on backcountry trails. Its success in the U.S. didn't just prove the skeptics wrong, it redefined the possibilities of what an SUV could be. The Range Rover had created a new blueprint, and the industry took notice. The Range Rover's rise didn't go unnoticed by the competition. As its sales and reputation soared, other manufacturers scrambled to catch up. Inspired by the success of Rover's bold vision, Mercedes-Benz broadened the appeal of its G-Class, BMW introduced the X5, and even ultra-luxury marques like Bentley and Rolls-Royce entered the SUV arena with the Bentayga and Cullinan, respectively. What was once seen as an improbable gamble had become a multi-billion-dollar global trend, and at the heart of it all was the Range Rover. What began as a bold and unconventional idea had, by the close of the 20th century, become a global phenomenon. The Range Rover's unique ability to blend adventure with opulence had not only redefined the SUV, it had reshaped the entire automotive landscape. Once a niche experiment, the luxury SUV was now an industry standard, and it was the Range Rover that led the charge. Despite the Range Rover's growing prestige and success, the Rover Group continued to struggle through the late 20th century. Declining sales in other segments, outdated manufacturing facilities, and mounting debt placed significant pressure on the company. In 1994, these challenges led to the sale of Rover Group to BMW, a move intended to revitalize the brand. However, the alliance proved rocky. BMW struggled to turn the tide, facing cultural clashes and strategic misalignment. By 2000, the German automaker had seen enough. It chose to dismantle Rover Group, keeping the Mini brand for itself and selling Land Rover to Ford. Ford recognized the latent potential within Land Rover, particularly in the Range Rover brand. Under its stewardship, the Range Rover continued to evolve, introducing powerful new engines, cutting-edge technology, and increasingly luxurious features that pushed the SUV further into premium territory. Yet Ford too faced financial turmoil. In the midst of the 2008 global economic crisis, the automaker sold both Land Rover and Jaguar to Tata Motors, an Indian automotive giant. The decision was met with skepticism. Many questioned whether Tata could manage such prestigious brands. But Tata surprised everyone. Rather than imposing change, Tata invested heavily while allowing creative freedom, enabling Jaguar Land Rover (JLR) to thrive. This new era brought stability, innovation, and expansion, with Range Rover at the center of it all. Through decades of ownership changes and financial uncertainty, one thing remained constant: the Range Rover's status as the gold standard in luxury SUV. Whether owned by British royalty, global celebrities, or heads of state, the vehicle became synonymous with prestige, performance, and enduring excellence. From its rugged roots to its current refined form, the Range Rover hasn't just kept pace, it has led the way. When the Range Rover debuted in 1970, few believed there was a market for a vehicle that combined off-road strength with refined luxury. But Spenking's vision proved revolutionary. Over the years, the Range Rover not only defined a new category, it inspired an entire generation of high-end, ultra-luxury off-roaders. Today, the Range Rover competes at the highest levels, alongside the Rolls-Royce Cullinan and the Bentley Bentayga vehicles that likely would not exist had the Range Rover not paved the way. What began as a bold experiment is now an industry-wide expectation. Under the Jaguar Land Rover umbrella, the Range Rover lineup has expanded and diversified. From the timeless Range Rover to the dynamic Range Rover Sport, the urban, chic Range Rover Evoque, and the sleek Range Rover Velar, the brand has become a family of vehicles, each catering to a different aspect of the modern luxury lifestyle. The demand for exclusivity and capability has never been higher, and Range Rover continues to push boundaries to remain ahead of the curve. As the automotive world embraces sustainability, Range Rover is once again evolving. The introduction of plug-in hybrid and fully electric models signals a new era, one where luxury and off-road capability are no longer at odds with environmental responsibility. With advanced driver assistance systems, state-of-the-art infotainment, and ultra-premium materials, the modern Range Rover remains true to its core ethos, blending innovation, elegance, and durability in perfect harmony. More than 5 decades since its debut, the Range Rover remains the benchmark for luxury off-road vehicles. What began as a radical idea has become a global icon. Its influence felt in every premium SUV on the market today. The Mercedes-Benz G-Class, once a purely military machine, has become a fashion-forward luxury symbol. The Lamborghini Urus, a supercar-powered SUV, exists because Range Rover proved that hyper-performance and off-road luxury could coexist. Even Bentley and Rolls-Royce, long known for stately